She packed her bags and left with her young lover, calling me pathetic. Funny, considering I paid for her entire career and degree. Now, it's time to show everyone who the real loser is. Eric leaned back in his chair, the familiar sting of whiskey in his coffee biting the back of his throat. It was morning, too early for most people to be drinking, but Eric wasn't most people anymore. Not since Lisa turned their marriage into a public circus, not since her stilettos clicked their way out of his life, dragging a suitcase and her boy toy Mark behind her. He remembered the exact moment she called him pathetic. It wasn't a scream, not even a heated argument, just a cold, flat sentence delivered between bites of avocado toast, like she was announcing a weather report. "You're pathetic, Eric. Always have been. I need someone who excites me." Excites her? He paid for her MBA, her designer wardrobe, and the very implants Mark couldn't keep his hands off. The only thing Eric ever asked in return was respect, and maybe, just maybe, a tiny bit of gratitude. Instead, he got a humiliating exit speech and a front row seat to his own downfall. That was 3 weeks ago, long enough for the gossip to spread through Lisa's office faster than the flu, and long enough for Eric to quietly shift from heartbroken husband to patient predator. He didn't yell, he didn't beg, he just watched, collected, compiled. Lisa had always underestimated him. Most people did. Eric was the quiet guy in the background, the one who remembered birthdays and paid bills ahead of time. But that quiet came with a dark streak, the kind of darkness that makes a man collect dirt on everyone, just in case. Even his wife. It started years ago, a habit born from corporate survival, but perfected in his personal life. Every snarky email she sent about him to her friends, saved. Every hotel receipt she forgot to throw away, photographed. Every conversation she accidentally had on speakerphone, recorded. So when she finally walked out the door, Eric wasn't left with just her insult ringing in his ears. He had everything, and he intended to use it. The doorbell rang. Max, his best friend in legal pitbull, stepped inside holding 2 coffees and a folder thick enough to make a lawyer sweat. "Morning, sunshine," Max grinned. "Ready to ruin a life today?" Eric smiled, a thin, sharp smile that barely touched his eyes. "Let's make sure no one ever calls me pathetic again." He opened his laptop, the file glowing on the screen like the holy grail of petty justice. Its title, "Who's Pathetic Now?" Inside were emails, photos, timestamps, invoices, and one very special PowerPoint presentation designed to detonate Lisa's career, reputation, and social life in a single click. She thought she was free. She thought Eric was the loser. She forgot. Eric always plays the long game. Eric had always been a man of quiet routines. He woke up at the same time every morning, drank the same blend of dark roast with a splash of Irish whiskey, and skimmed the news like he was briefing himself for a trial. It was a comfortable rhythm, until Lisa smashed it to pieces with her stilettos and smug smile. For the first few days after she left, Eric did nothing. No confrontation, no angry texts, no sudden visits to her office. That was exactly what Lisa expected. For him to drown in whiskey and self-pity, maybe even beg her to come back. But Eric wasn't broken. He was processing, calculating. He went back through their shared cloud drive, not because he missed her, but because Lisa had the digital hygiene of a teenager. Sloppy passwords, recycled logins, and a habit of leaving traces everywhere she went online. It took Eric less than 10 minutes to find her secondary email, the one she thought he didn't know about. And it was a goldmine: hotel bookings under fake names, flirty reservation notes left for room service. One particularly bold message to Mark, her lover, that read, "I'll wear the red set, the one he paid for." Don't you love poetic justice? Eric almost laughed, not out of pain, but out of sheer disbelief at her stupidity. She cheated with the grace of a drunk raccoon and left a breadcrumb trail even Hansel and Gretel would mock. But the affair was just the appetizer. The real feast came when Eric realized exactly how much of Lisa's independent success had been bankrolled by his salary. Her MBA, paid in full by Eric's bonuses. Her sleek office wardrobe, every receipt charged to their joint account. Even her professional headshots, the ones she used on LinkedIn to land her latest promotion, had been taken by a photographer Eric hired for their anniversary shoot. She had built her entire career on a scaffolding made from his sacrifices. And then she had the nerve to call him pathetic? That word echoed in his mind like a gunshot every time he uncovered another piece of her hypocrisy. Eric didn't just want revenge, he wanted to curate it, sculpt it into something beautiful and devastating. He wasn't interested in shouting or slashing tires, that was amateur hour. Eric was going to dismantle her life with the precision of a surgeon, slow, deliberate, and impossible to recover from. The real work began when Eric looped in Max, his best friend and a damn good lawyer with a taste for chaos. Over bourbon and pizza, Eric laid out the evidence like a prosecutor building a closing argument. Photos, screenshots, voicemails, even a few spicy texts she accidentally sent to Eric instead of Mark. All neatly categorized and time-stamped. Max whistled low. Jesus, man, you've basically built a full case file. Eric leaned back, swirling his glass. Why stop at a case? I'm thinking, a presentation. Max's eyebrows shot up, like, a PowerPoint? Exactly, Eric grinned. I'm going corporate with this shit. They spent the next 2 nights refining it, adding captions, bullet points, even transitions. Eric wanted it to feel like a quarterly performance review from hell, every lie, every betrayal, every invoice, all laid out with the cold efficiency of a forensic accountant. By the time they were done, the file had a name. Simple, elegant. Who's pathetic now? And when Max asked how Eric planned to use it, Eric's smile sharpened like a blade. Oh, everyone's getting a copy. Her boss, her coworkers, her parents, even the HR department. Lisa wanted excitement. She's about to get the event of the year. Revenge wasn't just a dish served cold. Eric was going to serve it on a silver platter with garnishes and sides. After all, why just end a marriage when you could end a career too? Eric always knew he had a talent for patience. The kind of patience that made people underestimate him. In boardrooms, poker games, even during fights with Lisa, his ability to sit still and wait made him look weak. It was his superpower, really, letting people talk themselves into trouble while he took mental notes, quietly sharpening his knives. But revenge? Revenge was a new kind of art form, and Eric discovered he was a natural-born artist. It started with the evidence board in his home office, a chaotic collage of printed emails, hotel receipts, and grainy security camera stills from their apartment building. He spread it all across the wall, stringing red thread between dates and names like a detective in a conspiracy thriller. It was both tragic and hilarious. His marriage had become a crime scene, and Lisa had left fingerprints on every damn surface. The masterpiece, though, was the PowerPoint. What started as a joke between him and Max evolved into something sinisterly beautiful. Who's Pathetic Now wasn't just a file, it was a multimedia experience. Max, the ever-practical lawyer, wanted a straightforward PDF with clear legal points. Eric had bigger visions. I'm talking music cues, dramatic text fades, maybe even a little voiceover, Eric said, pacing the room with a manic energy that felt unfamiliar and fantastic. Jesus, Max laughed, you're turning this into a goddamn documentary. Why not? Eric shrugged, his smile sharp enough to cut glass. If I'm gonna destroy her, I might as well entertain myself along the way. He knew Lisa's weaknesses too well: vanity, public image, and her need to always be the it girl at the office. She didn't just cheat on Eric, she built a career out of pretending to be someone she wasn't, the independent self-made powerhouse. Her colleagues believed it. Her boss believed it. Eric? He knew the truth. Every raise, promotion, and conference trip had his fingerprints on it. When Lisa was too hungover to prep for her quarterly review, Eric crammed the data for her. When she got her MBA, Eric's savings paid for every credit hour. Her LinkedIn endorsements, half of them were ghostwritten by Eric himself, after she whined about being underappreciated. Now it was time to show the world the real Lisa. Not the polished LinkedIn queen, but the spoiled, two-faced social climber who built her kingdom on lies and infidelity. The next step was distribution. Eric wasn't some jilted husband posting vague quotes on Facebook. No, he wanted maximum impact. He crafted a guest list for the big reveal. Lisa's boss, her department head, HR, the office gossip who couldn't keep a secret if her life depended on it, her yoga group chat, her parents, and even her annoyingly perfect younger sister. The delivery method? A scheduled email blast set to go out exactly at 9:05 a.m. on a Monday, just after everyone logged in and grabbed their first cup of coffee. The subject line? Performance review. The real Lisa. Inside the email would be the PowerPoint, every damning attachment, and a note from Eric himself. Dear recipients, as someone who has supported Lisa's career every step of the way, I thought it was time for full transparency. The kind of transparency Lisa always claimed to value in her professional life. Consider this her real performance review, curated by the man who paid for her success and witnessed her extracurricular activities firsthand. Best regards. Eric, proud sponsor of Lisa's MBA wardrobe and secret affairs. Max, ever the cautious one, raised a legal eyebrow. This is nuclear, man. She could sue for defamation. Eric just grinned. Truth isn't defamation, Max, and I have receipts. Literally. What made it even better, or worse, depending on your perspective, was Lisa's work persona. She built a career in HR consulting, running seminars about corporate ethics, personal branding, and maintaining professional integrity. The irony was delicious. The very woman lecturing junior employees about morality was doing things in supply closets that would make HR training videos blush. As Monday crept closer, Eric found himself in a rare state, not anxious, not even angry anymore, just thrilled. It wasn't just about revenge, it was about narrative control. Lisa had taken their story, twisted it, and performed it for everyone like a tragic comedy, starring Eric as the dull, pathetic husband. Now, Eric was taking the pen back and rewriting the ending. On Sunday night, with a whiskey in hand, Eric cued the email. It would send automatically while he slept. Poetic, really. By the time Lisa opened her laptop, the tsunami would already be halfway through the office. He didn't feel guilty, not for a second. After all, she called him pathetic, and if there was one thing Eric had spent his whole life proving, it was that underestimating him was always the first mistake. When Max asked how Eric planned to spend Monday morning, Eric smiled. Brunch, he said, somewhere fancy. Maybe I'll even order the avocado toast. Just for the irony. The best part? Lisa would never see it coming because in her mind, Eric was just the boring husband she left behind, but in reality, Eric had become something much worse. The narrator of her downfall. Lisa always knew how to command attention, the way she stepped into a room, the way her perfume lingered just long enough for people to notice, the way she laughed a little too loud at the boss's jokes. It was her currency. But on Monday morning, attention became her curse. The email landed in inboxes at exactly 9:05 a.m. Eric's favorite kind of precision. Corporate caffeine was still kicking in, and everyone in Lisa's department was multitasking between meetings and memes, until they saw that subject line. Performance review, the real Lisa? The first reaction was confusion. A few clicks later, confusion gave way to collective disbelief. By 9:15, Lisa's name was trending in the company Slack. By 9:30, the department head had called an emergency meeting, and by 10, Lisa was sitting in HR, her hands trembling around a paper cup of coffee she didn't even want. The PowerPoint was brutal. Slide after slide, email after email, photo after photo, every betrayal framed like evidence in a court case. Date, time, location, outfit, even receipts for room service champagne labeled celebration after firing squad sex were included. Eric didn't just expose her affair, he exposed her expense fraud, her fake sick days, and the motivational Instagram quotes she stole from other influencers. And that wasn't even the worst part. The PowerPoint ended with a financial audit, a neat little pie chart showing exactly how much of Lisa's career was funded directly from Eric's pocket. Tuition, wardrobe, networking dinners, professional headshots, every dollar tracked like an investment portfolio. The closing slide? Investor divests, effective immediately. Lisa tried to spin it. Of course she did. She called the whole thing a jealous ex's temper tantrum, an invasion of privacy, maybe even a case of cyber stalking. But the evidence was too organized, too airtight. She couldn't dismiss it as petty revenge because Eric had framed it like a corporate compliance report, cold, clinical, undeniable. Her boss, a man who prided himself on hiring empowered, ethical women, was mortified. Lisa wasn't just a cheater, she was a walking HR violation, and the company had just promoted her to lead a workshop on workplace integrity next month. The irony would have been delicious if it weren't so catastrophic. By lunchtime, Lisa's desk was empty, not because she quit, because security escorted her out. The same colleagues who used to worship her Instagram aesthetic were now forwarding the PowerPoint to their friends at other companies. It spread beyond the office, first to her LinkedIn network, then to her women's leadership forum, and finally, back home to her parents. That call was brutal. Eric didn't listen in, but he could imagine it her father, who prided himself on raising a successful career woman, discovering that his daughter was the office punchline. Her mother, who still hand-stitched the family Christmas stockings, learning that her daughter had used those stockings for a role-play session at a hotel with her married boyfriend. Slide 17. But Eric's favorite moment came late that night. After the chaos, after the LinkedIn posts mysteriously disappeared, after Lisa's friends distanced themselves on social media, her new lover, Mark, sent him a message. "Hey man, I didn't know she was that crazy. I'm out. Hope you're good." Eric laughed so hard he spilled whiskey down his shirt. Lisa was officially toxic waste, Mark was gone, her job was gone, her reputation flushed down the corporate toilet, and Eric was having the best Monday of his life. Max called around 11 p.m., halfway drunk and completely giddy. "Dude, she's threatening to sue." "For what?" Eric asked, lighting a cigar he didn't even like. "Telling the truth?" "She's claiming emotional distress," Max snorted. "From her own emails?" "Let her sue," Eric shrugged. "I've got a whole bonus folder called Lisa's Greatest Hits. It's practically a Netflix docuseries. But here's the thing, revenge wasn't the end game, not really. Eric didn't want Lisa back, he didn't want an apology. What he wanted, what he needed, was the narrative. She left him, calling him pathetic. Now, everywhere she turned, her name was attached to her own disgrace. Every job interview, every networking event, every future date with a new guy, all of them would find the PowerPoint. It would outlive the affair. By the time Eric finally turned off his phone and went to bed, Lisa was probably crying on her sister's couch, rewriting her life story in her head. But Eric, he slept like a baby, the kind of sleep only a man gets when he knows karma has his back. And in the morning, he ordered avocado toast, extra avocado, just for fun. Eric didn't expect her to show up at his door, not after everything, but there she was. Tuesday night, standing in the hallway outside his apartment, makeup smudged, hair pulled back in a half-hearted ponytail. The polished queen of corporate chic had officially unraveled into a cautionary tale. He opened the door just wide enough to lean against the frame, coffee mug in one hand, whiskey floating on top. "Evening, Lisa." She looked at him like a drowning woman seeing dry land. "Eric, please." He didn't say anything. He didn't need to. Silence was his new favorite weapon. "I lost my job," she said, voice shaking. You didn't have to." "Oh, but I did." Eric's smile was razor sharp. "And technically you lost your job. I just provided the context." She tried a different angle, her voice softening. "We were married for almost 15 years. Does that mean nothing to you?" Eric stepped out into the hall, closing the door behind him, not to be polite, but to keep her out of his space. "Lisa, you didn't just cheat. You turned me into a joke, called me pathetic to my face after I spent a decade financing your little dream life. You wanted freedom, excitement. Well, here it is." Tears welled up in her eyes, but Eric wasn't falling for it. "You have to stop the emails, Eric. My parents—" "Oh, your parents," he grinned. "I heard your mom called you a discount Kardashian at church after seeing the PowerPoint. That must have stung." Enough, Lisa snapped. You got your revenge. I'm humiliated. I have nothing left. Are you happy now? Eric sipped his coffee, savoring the bitterness. Almost. Lisa's shoulders sagged in defeat. What more do you want? I want you to understand something, Eric said, his voice calm and cutting. This wasn't about revenge. This was about control. You took my dignity when you walked out, called me pathetic like I was some placeholder husband you could shed like bad fashion. So I took your narrative, your shiny little LinkedIn-approved story, and I rewrote it. Now, every time someone Googles you, they'll find me, my version of Lisa. Her lip trembled. You've destroyed my life. No, Lisa, Eric's smile disappeared. I just made sure you couldn't lie your way into someone else's. She stood there for a long moment waiting for some kind of mercy, a crack in his armor. But Eric wasn't that man anymore. That man died the moment she packed her bags and left him for Mark, wearing shoes he paid for. Finally, she gave a small nod. I guess I deserved this. Correct, Eric said, turning to go back inside. Oh, one last thing. He pulled a small envelope from his pocket and handed it to her. Consider it a severance package. Confused, Lisa opened it. Inside was a framed copy of her first student loan payment receipt, the one Eric paid off in full on their second wedding anniversary. Her face crumbled. Eric shut the door in her face before she could say a word. He went back to his desk, opened his laptop, and took one last look at the Who's Pathetic Now file. He didn't feel the need to send it anywhere else. His work was done. Lisa was already legendary, a cautionary tale in her industry, a meme among her former colleagues, and an example every HR department would whisper about for years. Justice wasn't just served, it was plated, garnished, and personally delivered. As Eric leaned back in his chair, he raised his mug in a quiet toast to freedom, to closure, and to the satisfying sound of a door slamming shut on the past. The next chapter of his life had just begun. And this time, Eric was writing every word.